This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for checking in. More hearings today on Capitol Hill about that group chat security breach.
There was no problem, and the attack was a tremendous success.
The House panel's grilling top White House officials on the matter. Democrats are demanding that heads roll for the war planning snafu. By accident, a left-leaning journalist got looped in on the details about a military operation in Yemen 11 days ago.
Had that information gotten to the Houthis, American pilots could have been shot down, Navy sailors could have been targeted.
California Congressman Ted Lieu thinks the security breach has tarnished our reputation.
It makes it so that our allies don't want to share sensitive, classified information with us anymore.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz.
It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened.
Waltz takes responsibility for the leak, but adds that no classified data was disclosed. President Trump at the White House Tuesday.
It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future.
The president added that U.S. national security is stronger than it has ever been. 18 people were looped in on that military mission, including a journalist with the magazine The Atlantic. President Trump is signing another executive order. This one reforms federal elections. Matt Piper has more.
President Trump's order requires documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and demands that all ballots be received by Election Day.
There's no justification for this, let alone any legal basis for the claims of authority.
Election law expert David Becker says it is individual states that have the authority to set their own election rules, not the president.
The White House insists election reforms are needed to safeguard the vote and restore the trust in our democracy.
We got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other.
Also in Washington, the heads of PBS and NPR appearing today before the House DOGE subcommittee. DOGE stands for Department of Government Efficiency. Lawmakers are questioning the amount of federal dollars given to public broadcasting. NPR and PBS receive about $500 million a year through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. House Speaker Mike Johnson suggesting that Congress does have the power to eliminate some federal courts. He says activist judges are standing in the way of the Trump agenda.
We do have authority over the federal courts. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that.
In just 2 months in office, the president's already had a record 15 injunctions issued against him by the courts. Russia and Ukraine have agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea, at least on paper they have. President Trump says this could be a major first step toward ending the war, Europe's largest war since World War II.
The Black Sea truce is a big deal. We've got to have commerce flowing through the Black Sea in order for Ukraine to have a viable economy going forward. So this is the real deal.
Dr. Rebecca Grant is a national security expert and military analyst with the Lexington Institute. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is in El Salvador today, touring the maximum security prison where deported migrants are being held. There is a legal scuffle right now over whether the migrant flights of Venezuelan nationals violates U.S. law. Today marks the one-year anniversary of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. Maryland Governor Wes Moore.
I'll never forget, my phone rang at 2:02 in the morning, and it was my chief of staff, Megan Harrison. And I've always come to say that when my phone rings in the middle of the night, I'm never about to get good news. Good news waits until the morning.
A massive container ship hit that bridge, causing it to plunge into the Patapsco River. NBC's Jay Gray.
It took more than 3 months to pull the ship from the scene and the wreckage from the water, crippling one of the busiest shipping lanes in the United States.
6 construction workers were killed in that bridge collapse 1 year ago today. Vice President J.D. Vance is traveling to Greenland on Friday. The Trump administration is keen on the idea of taking control of Greenland Greenland for national security purposes.
A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there.
Greenland is the largest island on planet Earth. It's technically the property, or the territory, I should say, of Denmark. Still to come on the Noon Report, human trafficking in Pennsylvania, protecting girls' sports, and a charter school is shutting down.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. A lot of clouds this afternoon, some occasional snow shower activity in many areas. Accumulations minimal in most spots, mostly a little bit on the grass, maybe an inch or two over higher terrain, though. Temperatures in all areas in the 30s through the afternoon. Full forecast details for the rest of the week coming up in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, that is snow coming down today. Thank you, Ken. We'll look forward to that. The Pennsylvania Senate Education Committee expected to approve today the Save Women's Sports Act. That bill would protect female athletes in K through 12 as well as college by ensuring that only female athletes compete in girls' sports, no boys allowed. Students at the Buffalo Creek Academy in Buffalo, New York, have until Friday to find another school. That's because that school, a charter school, is shutting down in just 3 days.
At an adolescent level, yes, that's difficult. It's a new school at the end of the day. They are going to have to go to a new school.
Dr. Chris Manning is the founder and CEO of the Buffalo Creek Academy. He says the lack of qualified substitute teachers is one of the reasons it's shutting down.
We have some fine people that sub inside the classrooms, but at the end of the day, in many cases, the substitutes aren't teaching on content, and sometimes they're not very familiar with the students. So what you have is they're not necessarily learning as strong as they would with a core teacher, and they're not as supervised as strong as they would be. And our kids deserve better than that.
The Buffalo Creek Academy primarily served 5th through 8th graders. The state cited academic performance issues for why it's shutting down. Police are calling it a suicide in Rochester, New York. A 15-year-old girl jumped to her death Monday at the School of the Arts. Grief counselors are on hand at that school today. Mental health advocate Haley Emmering tells Wham News that many suicidal kids do not know that help is just a phone call away.
So, there's a lot of different ways that we can intercept and help support each other than waiting for it to get to a crisis.
Emmering herself contemplated suicide more than a decade ago. Today, she works with the National Alliance on Mental Health. If you or someone you know is displaying suicidal tendencies, please call or text 988. That's 988. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Northern Tier Representative Clint Owlett is hosting a couple of events in April on human trafficking. I spoke with Owlett earlier today about why there's such an urgent need for action here. Here's some of that conversation.
Human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in America, only second to the drug trade. And we know that they're targeting our kids specifically through a lot of digital platforms. And there are people that are engaging with our kids online that have alternative motives, and we have to do our best to protect them. And part of that is educating yourself. And we've got a great panel of speakers that are going to be helping us understand exactly the dangers that are out there and how we can protect our kids.
Yeah. You argue parents, grandparents, caregivers, just people in the community all should make a point of attending one of these sessions Wednesday, April 2nd at the Towanda Junior Senior High School, and then Thursday, April 3rd at the Wellsboro Fire Department. What would you say to the person say, I'm not personally impacted this, what do I care? Clint, what would you say to those people?
If you have any engagement with kids, and even if you don't, having a knowledge of what's actually going on out there within our community is key. And it's going to take all of us. I know a lot of people say, hey, we need to figure out some legislative ideas, and we do need to work at that. But half the battle is just educating ourselves on what to look for, and that's what we're trying to do. It is heavy. It's a heavy discussion. I've had some of the heaviest conversations I've ever had in this job, but it's one that we have to do.
I love the quote from Tina Pickett, your colleague in the Pennsylvania House. She says, and I'm quoting her here, this is a crime that's happening right here, right now, right under our noses. You mentioned this is the fastest growing crime there is. How prevalent is this in Pennsylvania?
Oh, it's a big deal. Our Attorney General, Dave Sunday, recently elected, he's actually coming to the one in Wellsboro. And this is one of his main priorities that he has. So we're We're excited to have him. He knows that it's happening in Pennsylvania. We know that it's happening in rural Pennsylvania. And it used to be, the white van on the corner. That was what we talked about. And right now we know that it's happening very, very aggressively with our kids and in digital platforms on their phones. And a lot of kids have them. And so they're prime targets, and we have to protect them.
Yeah, what advice would you give? Because every household has this conversation. When should you allow your child to own a smartphone? What advice would you give to parents?
I would say hold off as long as you can, especially on a lot of the social media platforms. I get it, the amount of communication that our kids are having with each other in the sports and the involvements that they have. So you have to have communication platforms, but there are ways to do it that continue to make sure that our kids are safe. But the amount of traffic that is online, and you're going to hear from, if you come to one of these events, you're going to hear from the professionals that are going to tell you exactly what's happening. And these are the folks that are actually prosecuting the crimes, and they're going to tell you exactly what's happening and the pressures that our kids feel. So we need to help them process and help our kids understand the dangers that are out there so that they can navigate through it.
Northern Tier Representative Clint Owlett, he's hosting 2 seminars on human trafficking, Wednesday, April 2nd at the Towanda High School, and then again Thursday, April 3rd at the Wellsboro Fire Department. Central New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney supports efforts by the Trump administration to restore integrity in federal elections.
Far-left Democratic judges in the state of New York on our Court of Appeals actually approved and voted for citizenship as a requirement of voting in the state of New York, which, by the way, is required by our state constitution. So that's a huge win in a very blue state like New York, where the Democrats in New York City tried to make non-citizen voting a thing that would be happening in New York City.
The president signed an executive order yesterday requiring proof of citizenship when registering to vote in national elections. Democrats argue it's the state's prerogative to make election law, not the federal government. The 5th annual Twin Tiers Regional Job Fair happened yesterday at the Chemung Innovation Center in Chemung, New York, not far from Elmira. Tyler Robinson runs a landscaping business nearby and was at the job fair looking for summer help.
I think this is very important for kids to kind of see what they want to do before they graduate school, kind of to get the ball rolling so they know when they do graduate what kind of field they want to go into.
Over 60 employers were on hand searching for workers. The town of Hepburn in Lycoming County, PA, is cutting its paid ambulance service, citing a shortage of EMTs. That means that town will soon have to rely solely on volunteers. These volunteers tell WNEP that's a tough ask these days.
With the volunteers going down, it hurts. It's hard for us to provide a service if we don't have people willing to do the service.
Volunteers are a dying breed. I wish we had more people to run. We need more EMTs to run at this department because there's only a handful of us right now, and it's tough.
The change means the town of Hepburn will no longer be able to transport patients to hospitals themselves. Starting in June, they must rely on mobile intensive care units for transport, and that could mean longer response times. The Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission has a new way to keep you informed during unexpected traffic jams.
The Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission has launched a free text messaging service to keep drivers updated during unexpected backlogs. Customers stuck in standstill traffic can now text the word info to 47676 for automated updates on incident details, expected clearance times, and road conditions. The Turnpike says the service, available 24 hours a day, originated from an employee innovation challenge and is designed specifically for backlog situations, not routine delays. Officials say this initiative, along with real-time monitoring and emergency coordination, has helped them achieve their fastest clearance times in 3 years. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, it was a milestone victory for Buffalo Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff. He became the second coach to win 600 games with one franchise in Buffalo's 3-2 win over Ottawa last night. Tage Thompson provided the game winner, a $1:23 into the third period, and the Sabres held on from there. Jack Quinn and Jacob Bernard Docker also lit the lamp for Buffalo. The Rangers did not not fair as well, losing to the LA Kings 3-1. JT Miller had New York's lone goal. With their fourth loss in their last 5, the Rangers remain 1 point behind Montreal for the final wild card spot in the East. Both the Penguins and Flyers got blown out, losing by 5 goals. Pittsburgh got struck by the Lightning 6-1, and the Flyers lost a 7-2 decision to the Maple Leafs. Also skating to wins, the Predators, Blues, Knights, Jets, Avs, and Flames. On the hardwood, the Knicks brought their A game and made some history in the process. Anthony Towns and Josh Hart became the first teammates in franchise history to both tally triple-doubles in the same game. Towns had 26 points, 13 boards, and 11 assists. Hart, 16 points, 12 boards, and 11 assists. And on top of all of that, OG Anunoby led the team in scoring with 35 points. And yeah, New York won the game. The Knicks 128-113 over Dallas. The Magic, Heat, Pistons, Rockets, Grizzlies, Cavs, and Thunder also won. And finally in football, the New York Giants have signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal for $10.5 million, which could potentially double with incentives. That is a look at sports.
Okie doke. Thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report, Jesus and politics, objective journalism, and crossfire hurricane.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Supporters of progressive cultural and political movements will often declare their ideas inevitable and themselves as on the right side of history. The last few years, however, have demonstrated the need to take such claims with quite a grain of salt. Arguments and cultural fads that once seemed unstoppable now look quite dated. And those who have persisted in making these arguments and following these fads, failing to realize that history never had a right side to begin with, well, tend to look a little silly. For example, a recent exchange from the viral YouTube series Surrounded, produced by Los Angeles-based Jubilee Media, featured left-wing podcaster Sam Seder, a secular Jew who hosts The Majority Report, surrounded by a diverse group of Republican voters, most young and religious. One of his opponents was an excellent debater who caught the smugly secular Seder off guard. He challenged Seder's view that religious people shouldn't impose morality through law. He pointed out that if laws are based only on majority vote, then they have no foundation other than the majority's preference, which could be wrong or even dangerous. Seder shot back that in his view, legislation should be founded on, and I quote, a humanist vision of what creates as little suffering as possible for as many people as possible. Clearly, Seder considered his view self-evident, good, and in need of no grounding beyond what, and I quote again, we have decided as a society in a democratic way. To which his younger opponent asked the obvious, that if religious people once again became the majority of society, could they not democratically legislate their moral view instead of Seder's? It was as if Seder had never considered this option before, and the big hole it punched in his moral philosophy. His fate, at least in this video, was not unlike what has befallen the new atheists of the 2000s. After a meteoric rise with figures like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens claiming to be on the right side of an enlightened history, a new graph by sociologist Christian Smith now shows that new atheism was essentially a 15-year flash in a pan, with their media mentions spiking almost entirely between the years 2005 and 2020. In the end, all the books, the conferences, and media appearances by the new atheist never made that many new atheists, and their numbers nationwide never broke the low single digits percentage-wise. And so today, the only real traces of that meteoric movement can be found in old YouTube videos and used book bins. In a similar way, while it's too early for a full postmortem, the transgender movement seems to be following a similar pattern. 5 years ago, gender activists were effectively holding universities, corporations, and governments hostage. And then came J.K. Rowling, the Cass Report, the closing of the UK's main gender clinic, the backlash against male athletes in women's locker rooms and sports, the wave of high-profile detransitioners, and a new administration working to roll back all the policy gains of trans activists. And now that sanity also seems to be returning to corporate America, even Target, the future of this supposedly inevitable movement is, to say the least, in doubt. The right side of history line is just rhetoric, something that in the short term no one knows, and in the long term belongs only to Christ, the one who is sovereign over human history. And whether or not a revival of American hearts and culture to Christ is inevitable, his truth endures. It's the meek, not pride, that will inherit the earth and human history, which is why so many who are proud enough to proclaim their trendy ideas inevitable tend to look, in just a few years' time, like mere flashes in the pan. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go. Ken McKinley filling in for Kevin today.
Good afternoon. Rather unsettled and chilly conditions across the region this afternoon with a good deal of cloud cover, occasional precipitation, mainly in the form of snow showers. The temperature is stuck in the 30s this afternoon. Snow accumulations minimal for most spots, but a light ground covering on grassy surfaces in some areas and maybe up to an inch or two over some higher terrain locations. Perhaps some slippery driving conditions in those areas, so be careful of that. Clearing tonight down to the 20s. A good amount of sunshine for most of tomorrow as temperatures pretty well up in the 40s, maybe 50 or a bit better in some spots. Clouds returning from west to east on Friday, and some rain showing up later in the afternoon as well in many locations. Temperatures likely a bit above 50 in most spots, but a bit cooler where the clouds and the rain come in a bit earlier.
All right, Ken, thank you. This is the Noon Report. I'm Bob Price, and there's lots going on Wednesday, the 26th of March. The White House is circling the wagons on that text chain controversy about a top-secret military operation that got leaked, even as Democrats demand heads roll for that security breach.
This is an embarrassment. This is utterly unprofessional.
At issue is how a left-leaning journalist got looped into a group chat about a raid on Houthi rebels in Yemen. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Nobody's texting more plans. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has taken full responsibility for the screw-up, but he insists no secrets were spilled. President Trump's ordering all documents related to the Crossfire Hurricane Russia collusion investigation. He's ordered those documents be declassified.
This was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. Should never happen in this country. But now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified.
The FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane in the summer of 2016 over allegations that the Trump campaign was in cahoots with the Kremlin. After a 2-year probe, no criminality was uncovered. A Christian activist tells Family Life News that people of faith can have tremendous impact on their communities if they only get involved.
We as American Christians want to just wring our hands and complain and watch the news and think about what's happening in Washington, D.C., but the effect that we can have in our community, even our city council in my city has shifted things because Christian pastors and Christians started getting involved in shifting our city. It's the best way to love your neighbor and to love your neighbor well.
That is Bunny Pounds, author of the book Jesus and Politics.
When I was a 28-year-old mom listening to talk radio and realizing that I had a call of God on my life, and if I was going to be in America and not overseas, I was a missionary to this country, and it was my responsibility as a mom to take the gospel to wherever I went. My motivation was this: I did not want to sit on the front porch of my East Texas home and tell my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids that I was not in the fight.
Pounds is executive director of Christians Engaged, a not-for-profit ministry that's all about getting people of faith involved in politics in all 50 states.
Live from the end of your life. What do you want people to say about you at your memorial service or your funeral, right? And the reality is you've got to make that happen right now in your legacy. And it goes down to loving Jesus, letting your kids see that you love Jesus, love his word, and then, let that filter into your church and your community, and God will use it for his glory.
That is Bunny Pounds with the group Christians Engaged. You're listening to the Noon Report, a Wednesday edition, right here on Family Life.
Not everything we read is true, but as the number of ways we receive information multiplies, it's gotten harder to tease the true from the false. Today on the Family Life Inside Out interview podcast, we're talking about ways to test the information that comes our way. I'm Martha Manikas Foster, and my guest is award-winning reporter for the Religion News Service, Bob Spitana. Bob, there seem to be as many ways to come up against false information as there are ways that we communicate. So let's begin with this. How do you define fake news, and can you give us a general idea of where it comes from?
Sure. So there's a couple kinds of what we could call fake news. There's what I would call activist news, which is news with a certain point of view that tends to only give you the facts that support that point of view. And then there's sort of fake or intentionally misleading news, where either things are made up or overemphasized or just misreported intentionally to mislead you, to make someone else look bad. You know, when I tell people, if you look at a piece of news that makes the people you hate look terrible, then you should probably be a little bit suspicious, because, you know, people are people. They're not all terrible. And it's intentionally made you to confirm your worst suspicions about people. Then it's worth checking it out.
It's pitched to you for that reaction, you're saying?
Yeah, it's what they call integrative propaganda. It's writing or a story that makes you think that the way you see the world is exactly right. So the people you hate are evil and people you support are great.
It confirms your own biases that are already established.
Your own biases. So it's pitched really well to do that and to promote outrage.
What are some concrete ways we can test what we're reading and what we're hearing?
I think the first thing you can do is read the whole story or watch the whole video. Don't just rely on the headline or a tweet about it. Read the whole thing. And then I think you should ask, how do they know that? So if someone gives a statistic, someone tells you a story, ask how they know it. Ask what their source material for that is. I think you should also look and make sure there are multiple sources in the story. And if the story is about someone else, did they talk to that person? Does the other person have a chance to tell their side?
Is there something about people maybe watching regularly some program or going to some site and they know that it has a point of view or that it's commentary, right? Like an essayist in a sense. But is there something in us that wants to draw the fact from that or say this is true, even though we are aware anyway, at least intellectually aware that it has opinion woven through it?
Confirmation bias is a huge problem. We want to believe that the people we don't like are bad or that our point of view of how things should work is right. Sometimes we treat the news like cheering for a sports team. We want our team to win. And so I don't blame the newscaster if my team loses, but I want them to love my team and I don't want to hear bad news. But we all know in our experience that the world is more complicated, that people are more complicated, that not everyone is 100% good or 100% bad. And sometimes the policies that we like don't get the results we want. We don't get mad at the weatherman, for example, when they say it's going to be snow. We were glad they said that because it's helpful information. You know, they don't particularly look for bad weather. They just tell us about it.
Right.
So I think the best news can do that, can give you the information, and then you can decide on how to act. But sometimes I think we only want the news that makes our side look good. When you think you have to win, you don't listen. So when I listen and only listen so that I can rebut what you're saying, I'm not understanding, instead of trying to listen to understanding.
Right. So how would you encourage me to kind of test that water to make sure that I'm not fooling myself?
I would look for folks that you disagree with and read what they write about. And then also look, when you get into the material, look at source material. You can read people or listen to people you disagree with and understand what they have to say, and then check out what they have to say. Because sometimes the folks you disagree with are right, or they have a point of view. I think getting away from the fact that you have to win and you can only listen to folks who promote your side will be extremely helpful. It's freeing too, because when you ask people to explain what they mean, then you get to learn something, and you free them up to not feel like they have to be angry at you and convince you. You can just listen to them.
It humanizes it. Yeah.
It humanizes it. And if the news is making you feel angry or hateful to other folks, then I would start to say, one, is this true? And two, is this helpful to me? Is it helpful to me to be at a site that always says these folks are evil and we should, oust them because they're terrible?
That is award-winning journalist Bob Smietana with Religion News Service on this week's edition of Inside Out with Martha Manikas Foster. Now, you can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature along with all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or familylife.com.
Good afternoon. Rather unsettled and chilly conditions across the region this afternoon with a good deal of cloud cover, occasional precipitation, mainly in the form of snow showers. The temperature is stuck in the 30s this afternoon. Snow accumulation is minimal for most spots, but a light ground covering on grassy surfaces in some areas and maybe up to an inch or two over some higher terrain locations. Perhaps some slippery driving conditions in those areas, so be careful of that. Clearing tonight down to the 20s. A good amount of sunshine for most of tomorrow with temperatures pretty well up in the 40s, maybe 50 or a bit better in some spots. Clouds returning from west to east on Friday, and some rain showing up later in the afternoon as well in many locations. Temperatures likely a bit above 50 in most spots, but a bit cooler where the clouds and the rain come in a bit earlier.
All right, Ken, we'll get there eventually. Thank you very much. Ken McKinley filling in for Kevin Williams today at the Weather Center. And finally from us at noon today, an amazing story. We mean amazing story of faith and heroism out of Western New York. Check this out. Charles Sergel of Java has just been honored with the Carnegie Hero Medal. That's America's highest award for civilian heroism. Last April, this guy was driving past a home in Aurora, New York, when he noticed smoke and flames. He stopped and turned around. Despite the danger, Sergel went inside that home to save the life of a 5-year-old girl.
Jesus made me go in, and I just closed my eyes and I listened, and I could hear a whimpering sound.
Inside that home, he found little Anna Barone sitting in a water-filled sink with flames above her head and burns on her shoulders.
I'm here to tell you that Anna said she spoke to Jesus, and Jesus told her to flip that garbage can upside down, get in that wash basin, and turn the water on. At 5 years old, I wouldn't know how to do that at 53 years old.
East Aurora Police Chief Patrick Welch.
Mr. Sergel has young children. He knew there was a young child in this burning building. His heart, his faith, his determination led him to decide that he was going to do what he could to try to save this little girl.
How about that? Despite the honor, Sergel says he is not the real hero here.
It feels amazing, but it's all about the firefighters. What I did in one night, they do every day, and they're the real heroes.
Charles Sergel of Java, New York. By the way, he's one of just 16 people in the entire country to receive the Carnegie Hero Medal. Way to go. And that's our world, the world we live in. Wednesday, March 26th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.